Good to go. And we are recording. Charlie, I really appreciate you coming on and especially reaching out through my website. Really appreciate that. So, how are you keeping?
I'm very well, thanks. How's yourself?
Not too bad. Not too bad. I'm enjoying these podcasts so far. Kind of getting to get out there and talk to people for an hour a day. Kind of keeps me happy anyway.
Yeah, understandable. I get that. You need a bit of connection at these times, so very much understood.
Absolutely. Yeah. I just one thing I actually want to say is like how I just wanted to know how you came across my page and so like 'cause we actually before we say we don't know each other. This is our first face
Yeah,
to
I've
face
never.
encounter as you like. So be interested
Yeah,
to find that out.
yeah. Well, it's such a small town. It's very strange. But basically, I was on Facebook and I seen shout out to Darren Hoy. He had shared one of your things, and I just watched it and I was like, that's really interesting. I'll give a shout out to your man there. So that's where we got in touch anyway.
Appreciate that. Yeah, no, that video's been doing the rounds and got a good response. So I'm happy out, and hopefully, will I can rope a few more people in to talk to me now for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, get the word of mouth out anyway.
Yeah, so the talk a bit about your band. I think that's pretty much right the main interest here. And so it's Arc is it Arco Arena?
It is
Or,
Arco Arena, yeah.
yeah, I was worried. I was like in my head, I was like, am I pronouncing that right? I was kind of worried about like mispronouncing
Yeah,
it, but
no.
and is the full band based from Dundalk?
Yeah, everyone is from Dundalk. I'm from Blackrock originally. So is the drummer as well, Pork, and then Owen is from up by Castletown, and then Peter is from not sure where he's from originally, but he's moved house like I think it's like 6 or 7 times at this stage. So he stayed in the town regardless. So we're all town born and bred. I mean, I guess some people would argue Blackrock's not necessarily town, but like if
It
you
is
go
the
to school in
town.
the town, I'd argue it's town. Like
Yeah, no, absolutely is the town. And how did the band form? Like, so I mean,
so
we all mates from kids, or
no, it's like most bands. It kind of formed from the ashes of another band. So myself and the bass player Owen have been playing together for like years and years and years. So we were in another band before that. It was going for about 10 years. It was kind of going since we were like young teenagers called Duct Tape and Prayers. Shout out to all our old fans now at this stage, but that band imploded at like the just the end of 2014, and then we just kind of didn't really waste any time. We'd been working on an EP with Peter because he is his like production skills. So we kind of knew him already, and he's a really really good guitar player as well. He'll always like downplay it, but he's one of those people who can just pick up a guitar and just play like basically any song just from hearing it once, which I find so annoying because he's like a human jukebox, and I'm just not able to do that at all. So and so then we reached out to him, and then he actually suggested Pork, who I'd never met Pork either, because he would have been like the year below me in secondary school. So we just all kind of got together. Because we had recorded bits already of like previous like I guess duct tape songs in progress, and he kind of learned them, and then we got together to like actually jam and see if things felt right, and fortunately it all seemed to click fairly quickly.
brilliant. And when was the band like officially formed?
It would have been like January 2015.
Brilliant. And so the the new single you sent me, it was like I thought it was such a unique sound, and I'm not very musically inclined. I like listening to music, but I wouldn't be into the technical side of things or the
The
creation side of things.
technical bits of it, yeah.
Yeah. So I was struggling to find like how to define your sound. How would you define that as an artist?
Uh I think I think every one of us defines it differently because there is four people. We do have quite different music tastes as well. Like myself, I'd probably be more into like the heavier kind of music. I'd be very much into like experimental music and kind of like drone music, and like I'm massive into instrumental music because especially in Ireland you have like amazing bands like Ansel Watch from Afar, Adibisi Shank, and all those kind of bands. So I'd be very heavily influenced by that. So with regards to sound, it's kind of it's a lot of like 70s funk rock stuff actually, ironically, like Chic and things like that, but it's kind of I think it's been given a bit of a modern twist in a lot of cases as well, because there is in that kind of music there is always that kind of heaviness, but I think it's just it never actually comes to the fore as much. So it's kind of like, how can you can mix that kind of heavy stuff with also the sort of the dancey stuff, and I think that's really evident in Docker Martens, because originally that was a way heavier song, but I kind of brought it into the lads, and they really like put the kind of the funk stuff behind it, and it kind of evolved into this like kind of like heavy disco kind of song.
Mm-hmm. And was that so for your overall kind of sound, was it intentional to kind of go to 70s funk rock, or was that just something that kind of evolved over time as the band kind of grew together?
Yeah, I think that definitely has like come out more over time. Like if you listen to any of our earlier stuff, like our first single, "Asleep Too Long," it's quite like Foles influenced. I think you can tell. It's quite like indie, I guess you would say, like that kind of early 2000s indie sound, like Bombay Bicycle Club sort of thing. But then over time, we've definitely kind of evolved sound wise, and I think you can really see that across our releases to date. If you look at our EP from 2018, you kind of see where it was going, like especially like songs like Tusk or I Push Planets. That kind of, it's like a kind of like a funk rock thing, but then there's like a very much like a kind of like a mathy rock element to it as well. Again, like we're all incredibly influenced by Foles, I would argue, so there's a lot of that going into it as well.
And do you see this as like your sticking sound, or is there still like an evolution going on within the band, and you see yourself kind of progressing into something a bit further?
Yeah, no, I think everyone's kind of influenced by what they're listening to. For the last while, I mean, it's been a while since rehearsal for obvious reasons because of what's going on, but it's definitely evolving and changing over time. I think it's definitely getting more technical in some ways, but then in a lot of other ways, it's kind of a lot of just straightforward stuff, like especially considering what's coming out music wise, like that last Idols record, Joy is an Act of, I can't remember the last word of the name of the album, but Joy is an Act of Resistance. Like that album kind of changed a lot of what I thought about music and how writing kind of works and how you kind of do, because they're so lyrical, but then the music is also excellent as well. And of course, you're influenced by stuff that's going on around you. Like I really like what like Just Mustard are doing at the moment as well, and loads of other Dundalk bands. So it's kind of it's a mixing pot of stuff.
Brilliant. And just because you mentioned a couple of artists from town there, how do you find the music scene in Dundalk? Do you think it's thriving at the minute?
Yeah. I think Dundalk bands are kind of getting taken a bit more seriously than they kind of would have done maybe 10 years ago, possibly. I know, because like you look at the breakthrough acts, like again, you know, you talk about Just Mustard, like they're doing crazy stuff. Like I'm so impressed by how far they've gotten in the industry. Or like people like David Keenan, or you know, shout out to I don't know how to pronounce the name. I don't know if it's AE Mak or I don't know if you know her.
Oh, Aoife,
like,
yeah, Aoife was in my class in school, in primary school.
Well, there you go. Yeah, but I don't know how she pronounces her.
I think it's AE Mak.
Name.
I think it's AE Mak.
AE Mak.
Yeah.
Okay.
They are
like
fantastic.
Anything, yeah, no, like she was on, I think it was the Late Late Show or something like that, or just if you look up AE Mak, it comes up. You know what I mean? Like, so it's crazy how much attention bands from Dundalk are getting. It's fantastic, and like, you know, a rising tide, you know, lifts all boats. So, you know, everyone seems to be really supportive of each other. Or like, if you look at what TPM are doing, especially their marketing campaign recently, like that. I was there on Blackrock Beach the other day when Gemma O'Doherty was down, and that video that they did, just like completely ripping the piss out of her, was great, like fantastic. Yeah, it was excellent. Like, and it was great to see that in person, to be there to kind of see that happening. But I mean, I should have known that they were going to make an appearance at some point. But just the Dundalk music scene is unbelievable at the moment. So hopefully it'll continue to be taken a bit more seriously now going forward.
Yeah, definitely. Even like I noticed, like myself, like again, I said, like I'm not too much into it, but like I know Katie and Noonan from Just Mustard, and then I know David. David is I was at secondary school with David, and saying that I was school Aoife, and like it's fantastic to see that everyone is rising above the town, and like the music's getting outside of the boundaries, and like Just Mustard, they were performing all over the world. Then David Keenan, he just blew up out of nowhere, really, didn't he? But again, as you said, rising tides lift all boats, so they're kind of taking everyone with them, and it's great to see that that other people are kind of like following in the footsteps and then realizing this is a possibility and this is something that we can do, and you're not just limited to the boundaries of Dundalk and the kind of surrounding areas to perform your music. Like there is a global stage out there that anyone can obtain, not easily enough, but like it's there for the taking if they want it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it must be said, it's not like a case of riding on the coattails of them. It's a case of like, you know, people would say, oh, a Dundalk band, they'll take it more seriously than they would have before, you know, that kind of way. So
yeah, I think, well, the only Dundalk band I would have known as a kid, it was probably the Cores, and that's, I don't think that's a good representation of the stuff that's coming out of Dundalk.
No, I mean that's a pretty like dated reference. But again, people like Jinx Lennon, like you have to look at the people who came before what's going on now. Like people like Jinx Lennon, I know the Curtain Thieves got a lot of traction in the early days as well. People like that kind of set the kind of tone, I think, with regards to how Dundalk bands are viewed. So it just seems to be just a continuation of that, and it's just that, you know, we're more interconnected with the rest of the country as well. Like I think a lot of people didn't really know Dundalk existed up until recently enough. It might be to do with the football team as well. I always kind of think that might have had some sort of impact in conjunction.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, that is actually, that's a very interesting thing on it, because with the notoriety kind of around the team, with the sudden rise from almost a relegation zone to as a 5-time champion now, obviously like there's going to be a lot of eyes and a lot of media attention around the town. So it's actually a good way of putting it. Yeah, that definitely could be a contributing factor to why there has been a surge in a lot of stuff coming out of the Dundalk.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a theory, but it just, I've always kind of put those things together for some reason.
Yeah, no, definitely. No, I can completely see it, like, especially from, like, my job is kind of within media and stuff like that. So it is definitely, like, a very good possibility that, like, the eyefall almost is kind of spilling off of the team and going on to the town. And you can see that actually a lot of the bands around town as well, especially, would be like avid Dundalk fans as well. So it's a good exchange there. They can kind of bounce off each other on social media as well. Like even seen the Dundalk FC on Twitter retweeted the DPM lads video, and which was fantastic. Like it's something that you wouldn't expect them to retweet. And then I kind of read through the comments thread, and you can see they invited them up to perform at the whenever to get back to playing football, like, so, which is fantastic.
Yeah, that'd be a great game to be at for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And just kind of going back to Doc Martins, the video is unbelievable. It was just
cheers, appreciate that.
It was just sensory overload from the get-go, but it was fantastic. Like it was hitting all the taste buds for all the right reasons. And I just wanted to know where that concept kind of came out of.
Yeah, so the concept kind of came from it's sort of based on the lyrics of the song. So it kind of evolved from this kind of like sort of like a metal song, but then it was kind of the way that I wrote the lyrics was kind of influenced a bit by Death of a Disco Dancer by the Smiths. I don't know if you know that one, but
no, I'm sure my dad does. He's like the ultimate Smiths head, so I can get the reference after that.
So that kind of like vibe, that kind of people dancing, but there's fighting happening, and then there's kind of like there's the port influence as well. So I always kind of think of people like having scraps in a spirit store and things like that. Not that happens a lot, but just like that kind of the fighting and then the dancing part of it as well. So I kind of wanted to put that into a video format that actually made sense, and it Tim obviously like helped immensely with kind of bringing that to from my head to actual fruition.
Well, yeah, and Tim, he's got such a unique side. I've only met him a few times, but a mega talented guy, and is like, I wish I had his creativity when it came to videography. Like the stuff he kind of comes out with is just completely out of the box, and it just works. It's fantastic. And I love that. And I'll throw the link to the video in the description of this so everyone can see what we're talking about. I love that. I watched it, like when you sent it to me, I watched it a couple of times and I was like, geez, everything was just fantastic about it. Even the ways they're dressed, I thought that was so unique and so cool.
Yeah, it was just that the prop budget was, I'm going to say, quite low with regards to costuming and stuff like that. So it was a lot of improvisation, and like I think they were just like regular, they're just like boiler suit type things, but it was just like, how do you get kind of a uniform looking kind of a look for that particular, you know, scene in the video, and then of course the costuming for the dancers as well. How do you make that stand out? How do you kind of improvise with regards to the craft? But like that was all just like homemade, handmade costume stuff. So I mean, I'm glad it looked a lot better on camera than it did in person. I'll say that for sure.
I like, as a videographer myself, I much prefer like that homemade touch to things. I think it adds just more like of a unique, more genuine kind of rustic kind of touch to things, and it makes I personally like, it makes it more personal for me that it wasn't just thrown together. Like there was a conscious decision made into everything that went into it. And it wasn't just something that was on hand. It was easy access to. So I'd tip my hat to you on that one. I thought it was brilliant.
I appreciate that. But when you're doing the homemade stuff like that, you kind of really have to kind of lean into like the comedy side of it, because of the fact, the limitations of the material that you're actually working with. So I think that's why the video came out a lot. We were kind of aiming for humor, but it came out a lot more comedy orientated than we kind of had initially. The initial vision wasn't as comedy orientated as it came out, but I'm actually more pleased with the fact that it did come out the way it did.
Brilliant. Yeah, no, that's really good. That's actually a good observation. I would never have thought of. I kind of tend to stay away from comedy when I'm making videos, unless it's like a talking kind of thing. But like, you know, sometimes if you attempt comedy, it doesn't come off well, that it dampens the whole production. But yeah, no, brilliant. I just love that.
All right, good. I'm glad to hear that.
And what about, what's your writing process? Like, do you have a set kind of routine, or do you just kind of write on the fly, like when you get inspiration on the go, or do you set time aside like a week or a day to write?
I mean, there's been a lot of time to write at the moment, obviously, because there's not a lot else. I think it's been probably better for musicians in general, this whole thing, because you know, you see people, there's massive demand for like recording interface and stuff like that. Like I'm trying to teach myself how to record things because I got an interface for Christmas. I hadn't really like messed around with properly because I've been too busy, but now that you're kind of stuck, there's been massive demand for interface and stuff like that. So I've had a lot of time recently to write, but normally I don't really set time aside. I try and like, I know myself, if I don't play guitar for like a day or so, I tend to get a bit like cranky, a bit antsy. So that usually happens regardless. But if I'm writing a lot more from a melody standpoint than a guitar standpoint recently. So usually if I'm out and about, like even if I'm on a break from work, just walking around like wherever it is that I'm working, I would just have the phone out and just record melodies into the phone, and then try and go back to them later that evening or the next day and kind of try and stick them together and see if that works.
Brilliant. And do you write with lyrics in mind, or would you kind of more focus on the instrumental side of things, like, or do you just let that both processes happen naturally and then combine?
Yeah, no, I think it's kind of been an evolution for me personally. I used to always just write the music first and then do the lyrics, but now it's kind of been more melody first and then lyrics. And then of course, like it's not just me writing by myself. Like all the guys are supplying ideas. Like nobody tells anyone else. Like it's very. I don't think we've ever had a session where somebody's come in with like a full song and been like, "This is the full song. Play it like this." Like it's always like, "This is my part of this idea of a song. What do you guys want to put on top of it?" And then they'll just do whatever. And it's usually, I've always found that when I'm bringing something myself, whatever they're doing is always way better than anything I would have ever thought of in the first place. So it's kind of just, everyone has their strength and brings their, you know, expertise with the instrumentation as well. There's the vocal stuff as well, because everyone's able to sing in the band.
Brilliant.
So like sometimes I'm singing, sometimes Owen's singing, sometimes Peter's singing. So there's songs where myself and Owen like trade off. Like I'd take the verse and he takes the chorus, or vice versa, or like I'll be singing a verse and then Peter will like come in on certain lines or anything like that. So it's there's a lot of collaboration involved.
Brilliant. And would you ever sit down together and write as a start fresh together, or do you kind of usually wait for an idea to pop up from an individual and then kind of amalgamate that together?
Yeah, no, we do. In a lot of cases, it'll just be like we've written it in the rehearsal room. So like somebody like Owen might just be playing like two notes of a bass line, and I might just come in on top of them, and then Pork might come in with something, and then Peter might come in with something. It just like writes from there, and then we just record all the rehearsals, and then I tend to take them home and then kind of chop them up and like what I think is, or like everyone else does this as well, like chop it up and see what are the better parts of the rehearsal, like what part of, like we might have like a 20-minute jam, but then maybe only 5 minutes of it might be usable, etc. So that's kind of how it will work.
Brilliant. And do you find right, this is like one thing I always find like really interesting when it comes to musicians and their writing process, that I'll give an example. Francis from Future West.
Yeah.
One of his songs, The Pilot's Nightmare, is one of my favorite songs ever. And he wrote it within the space of 40 minutes. And it blew my mind. Do you ever find that some projects kind of you might get them in a couple of hours, or then it could come into a couple of days or a couple of weeks? Do you find out like with song creation?
Yeah, no, sometimes it comes, you'll have a song in like an hour, and then sometimes you'll have a song that you wrestle with for like months to try and get into some form of like a shape. And I know it's probably different for Francis as well, because the fact that he's a solo artist, so like he kind of has to know when to leave it alone, I would assume. Whereas when it's like with a full band, it's like it's a lot easier to get things done because there's 4 people collaborating, I find. But yeah, sometimes you get stuff done in like an hour, and like that's a song that's done. But like we've definitely had songs where like we've been working on them for like a year before it I would consider finished, or anyone else would consider finished. So it just kind of depends. And I think a lot of it, if you're usually working on it for that long, it's usually not that good either. Like I find the better songs tend to be the songs that you can kind of finish the quickest.
Yeah. I see the similarity there, because I always find it fascinating that the projects can vary in duration. Like I know my own work, like it's completely different, but it's both creative. That like I try and get most projects done as fast as I can, because if I let it linger, like you just said, like I think it hinders the process for me. So I always kind of hit it with irons hot, and then if it lingers on past like 2 weeks or something like that, I have to axe it and keep moving with things.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But then sometimes, you'll have something that's lingered for like 6 months, and then you'll have a different song going on, and you'll be like, oh, that riff would actually just stick like right in there, and you're like, oh, that's what was missing. Or I think a lot of cases, I think there's a lot of pressure. I think musicians put a lot of pressure on themselves to like do the songs justice, I guess. So sometimes you might finish a song, and then you think, oh, this could be better, and then you do it again. But like you just need to know when to leave well alone.
And this is one thing I kind of ask most musicians that I talk to: do you master your own music, like your own tracks?
In our case, yeah, because we record everything ourselves. And from start to finish, it is all done by ourselves. So we would master our own stuff. No, what?
Sorry, go on. Sorry.
No, I just I'm not as involved with the mastering, because it's Pork and Peter who are doing the producing. Like they're absolutely fantastic producers and like fantastic mastering, but I wouldn't really have as much input into that kind of process of it.
The reason I ask is that like I always find it interesting that some people would send off tracks to be mastered. Like I know it's completely different, but I don't think I could ever hand off any of my work to kind of get the final touch on it. And it's something I love to get people's opinions on, because maybe it is something I should be doing, like towards the end of a project, to kind of get the.
I think with like you can kind of get a bit too in your own head about it. So I think in a lot of cases, when musicians especially, like usually if you're wanting something to be mastered, you're wanting it to be mastered by usually somebody in particular, because they're like known for a certain kind of sound. So like you might be sending it off to them to get like a certain kind of drum sound, or like a certain kind of vocal sound on it, or you might just not be if you've recorded it, you might just not be confident enough to master it yourself as well. So there's a lot of reasons why you would send it off for mastering. Like most bands don't master their own stuff. Like it's pretty normal not to. It's just if you're working DIY like we are, it just makes sense for us to produce and master in house as well.
Yeah, and very cost effective as well, I'd imagine.
Very, very cost effective, but it does have its downsides. Like you do know, again, like when you're writing the songs, you do have to know when to leave well alone. Like you could master something for 6 months and it might just not work out the way that you planned, and you might just like lose yourself a little bit in it. So I think it is good to have other people's input, because then you can kind of concentrate on being a musician rather than a musician, a producer, a potential audience person, rather than just the musician, and just making sure that your instruments or your vocals are exactly as good as they could be.
Yeah, that's interesting that you put titles on, kind of that you have to play these roles, and I think that actually is a good consideration on my end, because I find that like I have to play all these roles when I'm making something, where nine times out of 10 I only want to be one of them, which would be actually a good consideration that I might have to start sending some work off.
Yeah, no, I think that's a thing that affects most musicians, I think, at the moment, because you can't, unless you are just in the band purely just to play the instrument and that's it. But like, in pretty much every band's case, it's like you're playing the instruments, but you're also doing like the promotional stuff. You have to kind of, you have to play the social media stuff. You have to kind of keep up with the marketing. You have to make sure you get consistent gigs. You have to be in touch with promotional things. It can be a lot. And like, personally, I know myself that I would prefer just to be just play my instrument and just writing the lyrics, and that would be just the end of it. But you kind of have to be a jack of all trades at the moment. So it's 40 minutes on stage, but it's 10 hours of pre-production for that. You know what I mean? So it can be a lot at one time. So I know myself, I'd probably like to step back a bit, but you just got to do what you got to do, because otherwise you're not gonna get anywhere, not gonna get any gigs. So you just have to wear all the badges of all sashes.
Yeah, no, you absolutely do, especially this day and age where everything is so accessible to everyone. Like you said, like everyone can get an audio interface now in their house and start recording with really high quality sound, and then you can market that yourself on social media and stuff like that. And I felt the brunt of it myself when we put on a show in the Spirit Store there in February, and it was Just Mustard, Future West, and Kelso played at it, and then we had a couple of lads DJ at it as well, and they handled all like the event side of things, like the venue and stuff like that. But then I was kind of running the back scene things like social media and doing all the graphics and doing all the promotion, and whilst trying to balance everything else and get merchandise and stuff. So it is like it's a extremely demanding industry, and unfortunately, like you said, you do need to wear all the hats when the moment calls for it.
Yeah, absolutely. You're spinning plates, and like in a lot of cases, you might maybe not get as much done as you'd like to creatively, or like you might not be able to write as many songs or whatever because you're too busy, trying to promote the Instagram, or like getting a good post up on Facebook, or making sure people see this, or trying to figure out, what's the best time to post something. So it's just like it is a lot of spinning plates, and like I applaud all the bands who are able to do that and maintain a consistent kind of output and consistent sound. So props to people who are able to handle it. So
absolutely, yeah, no, it is. It's quite demanding, especially all the hours that go into the music. Never mind the rest of the promotional side of things and organizing events and gigs and stuff like that. So it's quite the achievement to be able to do it all. And we'll swing back to yourself. So kind of went a bit left field there. Who would be your main influences, and with the rest of the lads in the band as well? These all have similar interests that help guide you along the way.
No, the influence are actually pretty different in most cases. But I think that really, really helps, because it kind of, if you're bringing like a more of like a pop sensibility to like something that would turn out quite heavy, the mix of that is, I've always found really interesting. Personally, like when I was younger, my parents were always playing, because I was born 93, so like it was the tail end of like the grunge stuff and kind of the Britpop stuff. I wouldn't really be as into the Britpop, but I'd be really, really influenced by like obviously like Nirvana or like the Pixies or anything like that. But as I get older, I kind of learn more about Irish music and the Irish bands that are kicking around, like bands like Ansel Ocean Afar, as I mentioned earlier. And there's another really, really good band from, I think they're from Belfast, called Afar, who have just completely disappeared now, but they were just this insane, like ridiculously, it was like a heavy punk band kind of thing, but with like really northern sensibilities in like the lyrics, and they were just the lyrics are very, very funny, but like very, very pointed. I would kind of consider them like a precursor to sort of what Idols were doing like now. So it was very, very it kind of political, but also like just kind of taking the piss out of what life is like living in the north and things like that. So just really influenced by Irish artists, but like really heavily into the like the instrumental math rock stuff. I'd be a huge fan of Adam Easy Shank as well, and that stuff like battles and things like that. So that kind of really complicated from a guitarist point of view. It's always really interesting because you have all that kind of the loop and stuff going. You have all the like the weird time signatures and stuff like that. So I'm really into that stuff, but in a lot of cases you need to really pull back the sensibilities with that because it can be very overstimulating. Like there could be a lot going on technically, and in a lot of cases it can be kind of unlistenable. Like there's like a load of math rock bands that I really like, but like I could never convince other people to listen to them because I'd purely be listening to it from like a musical point of view. But there can be a lot of stuff going on, and it's just like it can be a bit unlistenable for some people, which I completely understand. So I really think that I'm bringing that sensibility to the band, but then the lads are kind of trying to, not trying to, but they're able to kind of put it in a more of a like a listenable song context, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely, yeah, and it's really interesting that you don't kind of all gravitate towards the one thing, which is amazing because obviously like you'll influence each other behind the scenes, like so that's really interesting to note. And what's the future plans? What does the future hold for you?
Future plans, well, I mean it's kind of all up in the air at the moment because of obviously what's going on. We'd love to get back gigging again. We just released Doc Martens, obviously. We have another single in the can. We're just kind of trying to figure out when we're going to release that. Hopefully, I would love to do a long EP or even an album next year, but it really just depends on how this whole situation pans out. Like, it'd be nice to be able to get back in a room together and record together and stuff like that. But until we know what's going on, it's kind of hard to do. I'd be interested to see what the future is like with regards to gigs and stuff. I've seen some people doing like drive-in gigs. I've seen some people doing, obviously the live stream stuff is huge at the moment. People doing that really well. I don't think for a full band it's kind of difficult. I can understand if you're two lads with acoustic guitars, it's not as difficult, but a full live electric band, there's not a lot of great options out there. Like I've been tricking around with some software. There's Jam Kazam and Jamulus and stuff like that. But again, you're having like latency issues and things like that. So be interesting to see. I'm hoping maybe some pubs will maybe get involved in live streaming themselves. So say if like a typical gig at the Spirit Store, but just literally just the band there and then Derek in the back, and then just actually just live stream that. But then again, it's kind of like, will that completely lose the vibe of a live gig, or will people go for that? So it's kind of hard to tell, but I'd love to get back in the live scene again.
Definitely. Sure. So, I think you have the finger on the pulse there with the live streaming events. I was actually spent my morning researching different equipment and different stuff like that, because it's something that before this I was hoping to get into, and because I've done a couple of live streams down the line and found the response is very good, but it is impossible at the minute to get any sort of live streaming equipment hardware. Toman is sold out, is backlogged I think 8 weeks with like cam links and audio interfaces and stuff like that. So so I think the market is going to be saturated. It's either going to be, if you can do it well, I think it would be a very good market to get into, but if you can't, I think it's going to be saturated with some dodgy streams for the next 6 to 9 months, I'd imagine.
Yeah, there's a lot of there's a lot of bad streams, I'll just say, but like there's some people, not bad streams, but again, just with the oversaturation, just everyone kind of doing the same thing. Like people who are doing it really well. Like the stuff that TPM slash the Mary Wallopers are doing. Like I couldn't believe the production values on that.
Yeah.
For the, do you remember? You know the first live stream for I think it was St. Paddy's Day actually.
Yeah, there was, yeah.
Like just production values on that were insane. Like I thought I was watching, you know, something like it was actually like a professional studio because they had the camera cutting back and forth and everything. Like I was shocked at how good the quality was. So if people can do stuff like that going forward, those are the ones that will rise to the top, and the rest of them will just be oversaturated. And
Yeah.
you know, it's gonna be interesting to see who lasts and who doesn't, that kind of climate, you know.
Absolutely, and I think the most important thing will be the audio quality of it all. I think most people can tolerate bad video, but if there's bad audio, I think that it just throws the whole production out the window, and I think that will separate the good streams from the bad streams. I think coming very soon.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah. So I think we've almost going about 40 minutes now. I think we'll call it quits. I think we covered every aspect there under the sun, and I think we went 360 in that one. So do you want to give out your social medias and where people can find you, where people can buy your music and stuff like that? And of course, I'll link it all in the description as well for them to find out. So.
Yeah. No, of course. Just we're on Bandcamp. We're on basically anywhere you can stream music. We're on it. It's Arco Arena. It's ARCO Arena. Check us out on Instagram. Check us out on Facebook. Check us out on Twitter. And we'll hope to see you all very soon at the gig at some point
in the near future. Charlie, thank you very much. I really appreciate coming on, especially reaching out to me as well. It means a lot, and really enjoyed this. Thank you very much.
No, absolutely appreciate it. Take care of yourself now.